Good morning, everyone. Just starting this Instagram Live, we're having a conversation with Cruz Ortiz this morning about his solo show, Otro Ojo. Hi, everybody. Just a quick pan around while we wait for some folks to join. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to invite Cruz in. Morning, everybody. Hi, Jerome. Morning, Matt. Just waiting a second for Cruz to join us. Interesting. Hey, Cruz. Morning, Cruz.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Thanks for talking to me this morning and talking
Yeah.
about your show.
Yeah, well, thank you for having the show. It's a really cool space. I was excited. I was telling some folks that I hadn't shown in Austin in years since the crazy art palace days. So it was really cool to go
Yeah,
be back in Austin for that.
yeah. How long has it been since you
I
had?
don't know. At this point, I don't like to actually count the number of years I've been doing work because
Yeah,
my knee starts hurting and I'm like, oh my God, this is getting crazy. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it's been a while. It was a while. It's when the East Side had people. So yeah, it was different, a different time. So it's exciting to be back in Austin. So.
yeah. We're excited to have you. It's an honor to show your work, and I
Thank you.
know for all the folks who live in Austin and are huge fans of your work, they don't get the opportunity to cruise down their neighborhood and see it in person. So it's a good opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, I think, we, speaking of that, we, during the pandemic, we were really, thrown off by, schedules and we had shows lined up in different places. And then I was actually, I follow this fly fishing guide out of Austin, Alvin, and such a great guy. And he literally was talking about how people can't go take trips to do these fly fishing.
Right.
And he was like, it's just time to stick to home waters. And that really made sense for me. And I think for me, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see what's around here. And so that was kind of cool. Like just literally sticking to home waters is kind of my theme for the last couple of years. So it's been nice.
There's definitely some silver linings to slow down a bit and
Oh
look
yeah.
around your own neighborhood. Yeah. Well, so this exhibition is called El Otro Ojo. Could you give us a bit of an introduction to the concept and some of the themes that you're working with, and I'll just pan around.
So this show is really, I have so many different thematic developments in all of my work. And at any moment in time, like I could literally take a trip down one of these different avenues. And this is something that I guess it's always been a part of my work. And it actually started a lot with, just thinking about this whole entire group of thought around Chicano art history and history that they talk about raza cósmica. And it's really interesting. I don't consider myself a Chicano artist, but I do look to them as far as inspiration. And I think for me, one of the things that I was just drawn to was this idea of like looking beyond our issues that we have today and literally in an almost ambiguous way explain our existence in a more cosmic manner and how we understand relationships, how we relationships with humans, other humans, our relationship with the earth, and then of course, the greater cosmos. So for me, it's always been that kind of like weird trip as far as like how do we get to know ourselves if we just slow down and really go deep a little bit. And so for me, this show is kind of like looking at what that means. I've always done well. A lot of people, know my work for the portraitures, for the portraits and the whole genre of portraiture. And I think for this one, I wanted to like really focus on myself. And I had always done other people, or I even had, years back, I would use alter egos. So now I'm getting rid of that. Literally, like, no, this is no longer an alter ego. This is me. And for me, it was really like going beyond, what the image of what I see is what I'm reflecting onto a canvas. And so I've been digging in a lot into different, uh, Chicano feminist literature, lesbian literature, and really like they, that every time they talk and speak, and it sounds like everything I've known before, like where I've heard, and I just wasn't paying attention. And I think now I'm starting to pay attention. And one of those authors is Gloria Anzaldúa, who was from South Texas and actually from the area that my parents are from. And every time I hear her speak, sounds just like, my family. And I think when I finally read her again, my adult age, I started to realize like, oh shit, she's really going deep here. And it's not about like civil rights type of, uh, issues that that plague us. It's she's talking about something completely different. And I think for me, it was just nice to see uh, to go into that. And these paintings are really looking at uh, going beyond portraits of what we see each other and or see myself. And so one of the devices I actually started to work with is using a black mirror, a black reflective surface. And she talks a lot about the obsidian mirror and about the smoking mirror and its relationship to Aztec cosmicology, cosmicness, and so, and even Mayans and, the whole Mesoamerican. And in fact, that little painting right there in the middle is based on further research on obsidian, the actual material of obsidian, um, where I started to realize that there was different types of obsidian, and one of the ones that I found really interesting was Apache tears. They're called Apache tears, and they're small little pieces of obsidian. And there's a whole story about how, along with that type of obsidian, where there was a group of natives running away from white colonists, settlers, and decided instead of, giving in to them, they literally jumped off the cliff. Well, the next few days after their families went to go get their bodies, and they couldn't find the bodies, but what they did find were these little small pieces of obsidian. And so they literally called those Apache tears. And those kind of things, that's exactly what I'm interested in the idea of like how cosmic, how reflection, how um, what we understand as reflection can mean so much more. And especially with me, being of this land, it held something a little bit more stronger and deeper to where I was at actually, you know, just in shock almost like, Jesus Christ, they jumped a cliff, and like
Mm.
that kind of gesture of like, how to do that especially with conquerors literally on your land. And so a lot, I mean, a lot of my work has always been engaged in the political understandings of what it means to be in Texas. Uh, and so I found that another different level of trying to get a grip on settler behavior and native behaviors, right? And how we understand those to literally be coinciding and working together. So, and against each other, of course. So yeah, the show is
Yeah.
really, I think, pretty profound in so many different ways in how I understood how to look at myself. And going back to the mirror, I actually made this black. It wasn't obsidian because that would have been stupid expensive, but it was a black piece of plexiglass, and it was just different. Like I think looking at reflection like a regular mirror, uh, there's so much light gets in the way, and when you're looking into a black surface, and actually people do this all the time on their phones. When you don't turn off your phone, or when your phone's off and it's just the black of the screen, you can
Hmm.
actually see your face, and it's kind of interesting when you look at that. It's a different type of interpretation of what we see of ourselves without light, literally, or light is struggling to reflect and go deeper into what we're looking at with our eyeball and what the light is bouncing into that surface. So
Yeah.
there's a whole, it got a little creepy and crazy when I was, literally looking into these black surfaces and painting what I see, like based on light, color, shape, blah, 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 all the formal type of qualities. But for some reason, like looking into these darker surface, uh, it was almost getting phased in and out. And so I was literally more interested in that presentation of that in between of not my eyeball or the surface, but the part that's in between those two things. And so
Hmm.
being able to reflect that onto a painting was a whole nother ordeal. And so that's exactly what you're seeing are these manifestations of those reflections.
So, yes, the majority of these paintings are self-portraits. All three of these are. But there's a few other figures in the exhibition too.
Correct.
One of them is this painting right here.
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
talk to us about how these historical figures got into the work, what they mean, and how they relate?
So I for this show for the show here in at your space, I kind of wanted to like mix it up a little bit. And one of the things that I have always been interested, just on the idea of portraiture and how portraits sustain a historical position. For me, that's so important. Being Mexican American or original Tejano, like it meant so much more to be able to like pay attention to what has been and who has done the work before me and my peers and people working today in social justice. One of those people was based here in San Antonio, and he actually was one of the first lawyers to really to go to the Supreme Court and defend civil rights for education of Mexican Americans. And his name was Gus Garcia. And I am not going to tell you exactly everything he did because that is not my job. And I tell that to people. It's like, if you want to know who this is, Google him. You do the work. I'm not going to do it for you.
Yeah.
But I will say this. Uh, uh, as far as he's had such a complicated history that I found that so intriguing to be able to paint this figure. And for me, looking at a photograph and really a lot of these paintings, this one specifically, uh, it's hard to like find good photography of the people that I talk about or want to paint or to reposition in history. And so it was really difficult finding a good photo. And I've been finding like I like Kinko's copy paper. Like I really like that texture, that toner, and so this painting is actually painted from that kind of image, and it was nice. Like I don't know how to explain it, but I definitely think that painting from that kind of source really allowed me to understand, how to paint in a different manner as far as like the approaches of how I understand like application and other things. So yeah, no, his tremendous figure, and I think for me it was really a huge honor just to paint him. I think for me, I've always admired, again, all these different people that we don't talk about, we don't know about. I mean, there's a school named here in San Antonio after him, and I can guarantee you none of those kids know who Gus Garcia is. And it's baffling, how people who are so important in history can easily get just buried. And a lot of that idea of being buried has actually developed more into other works that I've been working on, and the idea of excavation. Am I When I paint these, I think about, am I, painting something, to represent our people? Like, it just sounds so cheesy. Like, yeah, oh, he paints Mexican Americans. So I'm like, oh
Hmm.
my God. Like, I critique myself and even how I understand what that means. And for me, recently, what's been even more important is the idea of excavation, of literally, how can I look into the ground and excavate things that have been done, people have done work before me, and how can the process of like excavation, how does that help with a new identity of who we are? Like literally, like I think about that all the time. Like, how can how can that make sense? I think about that a lot. Is even as we go on in this idea of what Texas means, this land, where you have crazies like Abbott literally taking rights of women's away, and then at the same time, like, oh, let's go to the Pearl. Like, oh my God, like I just, what the fuck is going on? So those things are kind of interesting, where you start to literally find out how relationships are between people and what has been done before. So
And there's one more historical figure in the exhibition, and that is Gracia
yes,
Sanchez. Um,
yes,
and again, I agree with you completely. People should look Graciela Sanchez up.
oh yeah,
Uh, but can you just give us a brief introduction to this painting? And
yes.
again,
So
I know, yeah.
I'll tell you what she means to me. Graciela Sanchez. I was very young when I started my work in the community. I was literally 21 when I left, my construction job, and I literally moved downtown to the west side of San Antonio, and we started painting murals. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I was, like this punk rock skater biker kid who just knew how to make zines and screen printing T-shirts for my friends with bands. And so when I moved downtown, I got to meet lots of people, and one of those people who took me in was Gracia Sanchez. She had been working tremendously on the West Side and different social justice, different issues that she was involved in. And I, I did, I, I remember even like she would tell me like literally shake me like, Cruz, you need to wake up. Like, and I was an artist, and I didn't realize I was one of very few artists who were actually engaging into the community. And at that time, I wasn't paying attention. And they literally showed me different people, different things to read that I wasn't getting in college. In fact, Gloria Anzaldúa even gave a speech at the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center in San Antonio, and I remember going and I was like, oh, I don't know who this lady is. Like, and so now years later, of course, she's passed into the cosmos, and I read her text, and I'm like, oh my God, like, and so now I think this painting has so much meaning to me is that I'm looking at my elders and I'm starting to realize, shit, I should have been paying attention, right? I had a great fortune to actually be working with them at a very young age, and now I'm starting to look at all my other elders who I've been working with for the last 20 plus years, how they have influenced who I am, and how I understand social justice, how we understand a relationship with my children, like how those different things are so compounded. And so Graciela really is just a tremendous figure in my life. I call her my tia. She's, every now and then I check up on her, and her and her wife, Amy, are just such badasses. And I mean, they've taken on so many big entities and literally have made them come down. And so I really appreciate all the work that she's done. And real quick, this is a painting of a photograph where she's literally getting arrested, and the image is so amazing. It's from a newspaper journalistic type of photograph, and the image is super incredible because like she's like this little, she's really tiny, and you know, and she's surrounded by all these police officers, and she's handcuffed. Like, wow, she's gonna go somewhere. Like, it's just so. Of course, you know, the painting goes beyond just thinking about who she is, but what she's doing, where she's going, and then the other thing too is like, how do you make a painting of this? Like formalist, thinking like, how do I convey exactly what was going on? How do you able to like put paint to surface and say this is something more than just this little woman getting arrested. This is talking about something completely different, maybe.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just those are the things I think about when I'm painting in the studio, just whatever. But at the same time, like there's got to be some sort of connection. So.
I think that's the power of painting in a lot of ways as its own practice. This does have historical significance. This is a person doing incredible work in the community, but the painting itself is beautiful and has its own power. It goes both ways. So
Thank you. Yeah.
the other person in the show here is Olivia.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about the importance and including Olivia in your exhibitions and in your work and as a part of your practice?
Olivia is my partner in life. She is probably the most steadfast column of support I've ever had in my life, and I think it's interesting. I when I first started painting Olivia, it was literally because I wanted to paint her. What I was already painting portraits, like, and I understood, like, as I had people sit for me doing live sittings, that this had a lot more to do than just painting a picture. That I was literally putting like again a stake in the timeline of humanity or art history, and so I thought I should start painting my wife for my children. Like literally, I was started painting Olivia for the kids, and as I was painting them, each kid was like, "Oh, that one's mine, that one's mine," and then you'd fight over which one was theirs, and after a while, I started painting more of them, and of course the pandemic hit, and then she was like there, like I couldn't have people in the studio anymore, so I was painting them, and so I was like, "Hey, don't move," and she's like, "Oh my God," I'm like, "What? It's a pandemic. Where are you going?" So uh, I literally started painting and drawing. I did a lot of drawing of her. I mean, I literally have like over, Jesus, 500 drawings of her alone. Um, and it's just, different stuff. She's at the house hanging out, or we go to the park, and I literally paint her, draw her with the kids. But it's been really amazing. I think even her Instagram is actually all the portraits of her, and it's like all these selfies of her, and I find that really interesting in the age of technology that you have this archaic form of selfies, oil painting on canvas. Like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah,
So, but
old
yeah,
school.
no, her paintings are just amazing. And the thing about them is like I don't think about them. Um,
Hmm.
there's no thought. It's just literally me painting her, and I think for me, that's probably the joy of painting in the sense that I don't think about these big, cosmic, rasa cosmica stuff, or, how does she fit in the history of Mexican American history? Like, it's just I'm painting her.
Just painting. Yeah,
I'm just painting, and I think
love
for
that.
me, those are probably the most important paintings in the whole field of my work. I think they 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 show something that a lot of them I think I try to do is this idea of what intimacy means, what sincerity means. These are
Hmm.
sincere
Hmm.
paintings of Olivia. Um,
Well, somebody in the comments actually asked you to address the immediacy of your paintings, and I've heard you talk about how important the everyday painting is to you and how it teaches
Yes.
you. It shows you how to create certain effects, and is that the importance of these everyday paintings and the paintings of Olivia to you?
Yes, no, I mean, in general, I don't have the attention span to go beyond 3 hours of painting. Like, and I think someone, I had a studio visit once. They're like, "Oh, you're so prolific." I'm like, "No, it's called I don't have an attention span." Like, like I literally
Moving
have
on.
I have so many pieces. And I, and every painting is, I finish. I'm like, yes, I finally reached the point of what I wanted to do, or to communicate, or to somehow like come up with the surface quality that I was really looking for. And then I look at it, I'm like, I could do better, like, or I could do something else. And so I'm constantly working, and I find that, exhausting. Jesus, all my work is very exhausting. I'm constantly painting, and for these, the Olivia ones actually slow me down a little bit, and I think that's what I was talking
Right.
about. Is that they they let me pay attention to the things I'm not used to paying attention to, if that makes sense. I think
Yeah.
those are the things that I get to slow down and just, enjoy not thinking, and not worrying about how it's gonna look. I used to, because it's like I'm painting my wife. You better make it look good, kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? But after a while, she was like, "No, that's," and I was like, "Oh, what do you think of that one?" She's like, "Oh no, I mean that's your interpretation. It's fine." I'm like, "What? Oh shit. Okay, well then I'll keep going." Like, you know what I mean? So then, like, I was encouraged by that, her I her understanding of me trying to understand what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, and so it became interesting, that relationship. I we talk about art a lot, and she doesn't. What she even tells me, I don't know nothing about art. Like, she says she doesn't, but she does. Like, she knows so much about art that it's just, she doesn't like to talk about it, but somehow we end up talking about, all these bigger issues. That painting right there, the green one, the one on the bottom, is probably one of my favorites. I literally have like four paintings that I keep close to me in the studio, and that one has been on my wall for some time, like 2 years, probably less than that. But this was a painting done from a cell phone photograph, and I didn't paint from paper. I painted from the phone, and the shadow on it was just so dark. And I really, we talk about that a lot, me and her, like how we're dark hearts and we're so sarcastic. It's fucking horrible.
Hmm.
Uh, and so this painting really was done. I was looking at a lot of different artists who or did portraits, but really went beyond different ideas. Giacometti, just the idea of like the idea of Giacometti, just literally focusing on the face and just over and over and over, and this buildup of the surface, and and when I'm painting Olivia, I'm painting that one person over and over and over again, and for me, this painting really goes into a different, totally different realm of how I usually paint. These paintings are very, very deep, very, very, like the one on the top, you could tell is very quick and easy. Um, but the one on the bottom, literally, there's so much more going on. I feel like, and I don't know. I'm really drawn to it. I think the shadows, the color, just really are doing
They're
something. I try to mimic whatever I'm doing in that painting so many times in different other pieces. So it's kind of one of these gold star pieces that I keep close, and I'm like, I always refer back to, like,
nice.
how did I handle paint surface on that? So
Yeah.
it's a pretty important painting.
And the other element of this exhibition that's, so clear when you walk in are these sculptural pieces. You've got this piece, you've got the chessboard,
Right.
and you've got sort of the partner piece to the first piece that I showed.
Right.
Uh, how did those come about? What's your background in sculpting, and where did like the source material for these come from, and
Yeah.
the ideas?
Well, um, I, you know, I it's hard to explain. Like I love using wood, the material of wood. I'm also a printmaker, of course, and I've done lots of screen printing. And but for me, the wood cuts are the ones that I really am attracted to, like the surface and the idea of gouging into a surface to make a matrix that gets repeated and over and over. And I have a neighbor who cuts trees down, and he's always like literally bringing huge trailers of like this mega monolithic type of trees, like oak and mesquite and everything. And so he'll throw some in my yard. He's like, "Hey, here, hey, vecino, make something out of that." I'm like, "Oh my God, okay." And so I'm like, "All right, vecino, I'll make something." And so I got it. I've done sculpture before, but it was usually like two by fours and metal, tubing and stuff like that. But for this, I was like, and I had actually worked on this some time ago, and I just started getting the chainsaw and just going to town on it. And I really enjoyed like the surface of it. It was just very much like my paintings, where they were just very textured and layered. Um, and for the longest time, I just had them shellacked. And then I was just looking at them more. I was like, I should paint these bitches. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Mm.
so I started painting them, and it brought back a lot of other pieces that I had done years ago that I totally forgot. But in college, I was really studying Spanish colonial art out of New Mexico, and how they used different that were called bultos, and they were carved wood, carved saints out of wood, and different saints, the Virgin of Guadalupe and all these people. But for me, I was just like, wow, they used wood like literally from their backyard, and how they painted them was like they painted them to cover the wood, like to literally to disguise the wood, and like it was almost like I wanted to make a sculpture that you forget the material that it's at, and I thought that was interesting. Of course, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to show that these are different. I mean, it looks like the cut from my neighbor, like literally the log that he brought me, and I just literally chunked at it.
Well,
Um,
they're heavy too.
oh yeah, they're fucking
They're
super
substantial.
stupid heavy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I literally have. I mean, we have to bring a dolly just to carry these things around because
Hmm.
they're super heavy. But for me, I think these pieces really connect to a lot of the Spanish colonial type of art, the mask making of central Mexico. That
Yeah.
I've always, a lot of my work deals with masks and the idea of shamanistic, practices. And so this really, uh, I'm really excited about. I literally had this in my studio for God, years, um, but I just literally saw them and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna paint these. And for some reason, I literally came to life, and so yeah, you're gonna definitely see more of these in the future, where because I have my neighbor bringing me wood all the time. So I definitely think they did a lot. They handled paint in a way that I wasn't expecting. There was something very um, surprising about how the paint went on, and I didn't care. Like, you know what I mean? I think that's what's happening too. In my career, I'm starting to not care as much as far as I don't know. I just literally I like getting to the point where I'm not thinking, and I'm just literally just making work. And I think
I
for
love the
me,
quality of the paint. I mean,
yeah,
areas like this where you can see the strokes, and there's definitely a relationship to your two-dimensional work.
yeah, and like even this, like you could see the underpainting. I was like, I painted it. I was like, oh, I don't like that, and so then literally I was like, wow, this is literally turning into a decision making, issues that I have with canvas where, sometimes colors don't work and I just scrape them off or, repaint over. And it was nice to have a different type of surface other than canvas. And the other thing too is like canvas that I use specifically is drop cloths from Home Depot,
Hmm.
which is like not even like the real, art canvas. And I can't do the real canvas. It's just too legitimate, even. But literally, it's just too smooth, and so all the canvases I use have a really heavy tooth to them. And so I guess painting on this kind of surface reminded me of that kind of canvas, tough, surface that I really enjoy painting on.
Yeah. The last piece here is the chess set, and this is made from the same material, correct? And
Yes, yes,
how did you? This is the second chess set that you've ever made, correct?
yes, yes.
And
So yeah,
yeah,
I love chess. I mean, that's something, and it's so funny. Like I literally this show, I didn't think about it a lot. I had a other show in Houston at Nancy Littlejohn, and this show I wanted to like take a break. And for me, I had done a chess piece at that show as well, but this one, I really enjoyed making this piece. It was I really like the idea, like the roll up, the
mhm.
tournament type chess
the
sets
can the
that
can
are that are canvas roll ups. You know what I mean? And then you just throw them in a tube, and so these pieces are all mesquite pieces of wood from my neighbor, using house paint and the same canvas that I use for my paintings, with that house paint terracotta color that I'm really enjoying right now. I don't know. I remember years ago, I was at LACMA talking to one of the curators, Rita Gonzalez, and I remember she asking me like, "Hey, so what are you working on?" I'm like, "I don't know. I've just been playing chess." And she's like, "What?" She was just so confused. Like, I guess she wouldn't expect it that I was going to say that. I was like, "Yeah, I'm just, really taking a break from painting and playing chess all solito by myself." And now they have the computer, the app, and I'm always on it. And
hmm
I don't know. I always find I love games. I like the idea of relationships of trying to play each other out. And I think for me, the chess set, it makes sense to me to have that in the show, because it's literally like a portrait. It's a portrait of how I see myself, literally, and how all of us really see each other, how we play different, take moves, we strategize, we try our best to create strategy of what we're gonna do for our next move, but then you never know, or you forget, damn, I forgot that bishop was there, kind of thing. And so it was really interesting to see that happen, as far as like thinking about sculpture. And I mean, all my work is, I think about my work a lot. As far as my public art, I always consider community a big part of my work. And so for me, the sculpture is inviting. Like it's literally like we were playing that night of the opening, uh, and I thought, how cool is that to have a piece of art that invites people to engage each other? And I think that's, we're missing that a lot. I'm actually designing chess parks right now. Like I've been spending some time designing chess parks for the city. They haven't been funded, but I'm literally just like these, crazy ideas of like what would a chess park look like made by Cruz Ortiz, kind of thing. So
Hmm.
it's been kind of interesting to see how that works.
Well, you mentioned, with chess, the idea of play. You mentioned taking a bit of a break for this exhibition, the idea of a break at least. Clearly, you've made, over 20 pieces for this one exhibition, but a feeling of play comes through in the work, and I can't help but see it in the color palette. The color
Right.
palette is very light. You've got a lot of these light blues, light pinks, yellows running through your work. And overall, I just think the work does feel like the viewer can tell you had fun making it. Um, it feels light, it's exciting, and I think it's kind of the perfect show for Austin. Just kind of captures the mood of the city, and um, I think it's a beautiful show.
Thank you.
Is
Yeah.
there anything else that you'd like to mention before we say goodbye?
No, I just reiterate the use of color. I think about color a lot. I've been through so many different ideas of how to handle color that it's literally become a major I guess situation where I'm literally so uh, specific about the colors that I use. I remember years ago, I just, would just buy paint. It was always like, oh yeah, that's a cool color, and throw it in the bucket and take it back to the studio. But it wasn't until McKay Otto, an artist
Hmm.
here in Texas, who told me, he goes, Cruz, you're using too many colors. Like, I'm like, what? He
Interesting.
goes, yeah. He goes, and you know, the idea of limited palette. I mean, we all know about what that means, and you know,
Right.
and so and I had, you know, I'm not to say like I was totally ignorant about that, but for some reason, like the way he talked about it, and looking at Agnes Martin's work, I really looked at a lot of other artists. You know, specific. I mean, Gustin. I mean, we could go on the different lists of different artists that I'm really influenced by, but I think for me, I wanted to see what colors made sense, and it's really interesting because I don't think about how color looks. I think about how color literally feels when I'm painting it. Um, like phthalo green is just so fucking difficult to work with. Like I don't know if anyone knows that, but like you can't even squeeze it out of the tube if it doesn't get on your hand. And so for me, I'm like, no phthalo green. I can't even deal with it. I'm like, oh my God, like it's just so difficult. And you know, I like the, you know, the paint that's gonna has more body to it that I can really like literally, you know, dig into the canvas as I'm working. So, and of course, I'm always fluctuating, experimenting with different blues. And right now, I'm really into Prussian blue and King's blue out of by Williamsburg. Those are the ones that I really, really, you know, suck into hard, and they're just beautiful, beautiful color. That orange color is a Montserrat orange by Williamsburg that
This
I
here.
just cannot get rid of it. It's just so beautiful. Yeah. Um, so yeah, those colors are. I really do. I do think a lot about my color use. I don't ever. You know, it's not a haphazard thing. It's very every color I use is very very specific into how I apply that to the surfaces. So it's cool.
Well, well, you know, for all the folks that have listened in and watched, I really appreciate it, Cruz. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. We've got 3 weeks left of this exhibition. Like you said,
Yes.
this is one of the, you know, the first exhibitions in Austin in many, many years. The quality of the paint, the color, you know, all of the things that you've been talking about. It's important to see this work in person, in my opinion. Uh,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah,
I'm
it's the only way to see art. Especially after the pandemic, it's like, oh my God, like you can ask my wife. We bought so many art books. Like I'm like, I have a whole library because I just could, we weren't able to see art, and so I definitely, you know, encourage everyone to go see the show. It's, yeah, I guess a couple weeks left. It's
three
just,
weeks.
I'm very proud of this work. It's an amazing, amazing, uh, body of work that I'm really excited to be showing there. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, Cruz. So this exhibition's on view till April 16th. Please reach out to the gallery, reach out to Cruz if you'd like to come in and see it. We're open Tuesday through Saturday.
Yay! Thanks,
Thanks for
Kevin. No problem, y'all. Y'all take care, y'all. Bye.
have a good. Bye.